So my name is Ed Cole. I've been a member here for about a year. To be honest with you, I was a little hesitant in joining because I didn't know what I'd get out of it, but I tell you what, it's worth 10 times what you pay for dues. I've been very, very lucky to talk to a bunch of different people, get a bunch of different viewpoints on what we're doing, and my turning because of it has improved greatly. So this is a great opportunity to talk to each other and learn from what you're doing. So I've only been turning, maybe 4 or 5 years. Started with small projects, had just a little small lathe like the Deltas. Was able to work myself up into bigger things, get a little braver. I'm one of the turners that started with carbides. Learned all my bad habits. Started buying some high-speed tools and trying to learn how to return with those tools. The stuff I'm doing today, I'm using my carbides because that's what I'm probably most comfortable with right now. So what we're going to do today is my daughter had a request of me that she wanted to make something for a friend, but she didn't want to do a lot of work. She really only wanted to, come over for an hour, make something, and then leave. So I found these little keychain or key fob projects, and I'll pass these around so everybody can take a look. Craft Supplies sells the metal key ring part of the thing, 3 of them for $3. So it comes in a little bag with 3 of them. So very inexpensive little project to do. It kind of taps into the typical wood turner. Everybody's got a pile of cutoffs and scrap pieces that they just can't get rid of because the wood's too pretty or they're too cheap or both. So you take those little scrap pieces, just do a quick turn on them, and they make nice little Christmas gifts. So if we want to just... The rings are from Craft Supply. So what I'll show you today is just my process of how I just kind of turn some of those. I'm by no means an expert on any of this. And if anybody has any suggestions or better ideas, I'm open because that's what I think this club's all about. I start with a waste block. The fob wants to be just under 2 inches when it's finished. So I put a little indentation so that I can know that my 2-inch diameter is there. This is just a waste block in a chuck so that anybody can do it if they have the chuck. This is a simple project. Double-sided tape, carpet tape. I have a variety of cutoff or block pieces. Just put a couple pieces of tape on the back. Anybody turns with double-sided tape, it's always a harrowing experience. Depends on what I'm doing and how aggressive I try to get. That's one of the reasons that I brought the carbides today. I tend to get a little aggressive with my gouges or bowl gouges, and if you get too aggressive, you get a catch. If you get a catch, I hope your reflexes are. So I like to trim my tape a little bit. I almost always try to turn with the tailstock up just to give you that little extra safety net. You can't always do it.
If you stick it on there before you put it in the chuck, put it in the vise or squeeze it with a clamp.
Yep. Yeah, it's pressure sensitive, so the more pressure. You know what I didn't do was grab a garbage. So. That's the other reason I kind of pulled the tailstock up. I have, well, here, we'll show you. I have found a little bead with a little hole in it that fits over my point on my tailstock so that I can just place this on here. Got a little hole on my bead. Crank my tailstock up. Like Mark said, get some pressure on it. Let it set for a few minutes. Then all we want to do is you want to round it. Finished diameter wants to be around 1 7/8. So whatever you can do. My lathe at home doesn't go real slow, so I tend to turn faster. We're going to put the face shield on, right? I set it there so I wouldn't forget. Now we have a round piece. Now your creative side can take over and you decide what kind of designs you want to put in it. Beads, coves. We'll start. I have a couple of specialty tools that I picked up or created. Just bought a little scratch awl. I have a hollowing scraper, I guess they call them. So we'll turn whoop. Got it? Thanks. The awl tends to put a nice fine line in there for just some decoration. Little cove. Maybe we'll round over the edge. So if you have the fobs as they come around, you'll notice that they sit in a little groove. So the material you're using, it really can be any size you want. If it's too thick, you'll have to taper the edges. If it's too thin, the ring won't fit into it. So I would say about 1/4 inch you want at least on the ring. So I'm going to cut a groove in the middle of my project, and you want it deep enough for the ring to sit halfway into it. So the first couple of times I had to cut a groove and set it in there to see if it was deep enough. Again, I'm using my carbide diamond tip tool. You could use a skew or I suppose a gouge. Do a little quick sanding here and there. These are going to be in pockets all the time and keys, so they're going to get banged up quite a bit. So I don't go to 6,000 grit on them. I like to put a divot in the middle or something for the thumb to hold on to. So this is where I'll pull the tailstock away. Hopefully by now the tape has had enough time to hold. Nice light cuts. So if you wanted to, you could be done. Otherwise, you flip it over. I use a little paint can opener here. Just take it over, flip it over. That's one of the other reasons I leave that ridge on there, so I can tell where the center point is. Bring up my tailstock again. Put a quick little design on the back side so it's three-dimensional. A little bit of sanding. And just like that, we have a little few-minute project done. So you can see it's got a little design to it. All I usually use on these is a little bit of boiled linseed oil just to bring out the grain. Again, if they're going to be in the pocket all the time, I suppose if you wanted to, you could put a CA finish on it to protect it. The last step in this process is to cut the notch. And to be honest with you, I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to do that because I use my drill press at home. So what I came up with was a little jig that holds the piece in. We'll clamp it a little bit so it doesn't go anywhere. I have a Forstner bit. 1 7/8 Forstner bit. That's it. Just takes a little notch out for the key ring. Creative solutions. A little bit of sanding. So there you go. Some of the ones that went around had rings. Some of them don't have rings. That can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes, popping them on. Otherwise, pair of pliers and muscle it on. I don't know if you want to pass that around. That particular piece is bloodwood. I think I passed around a bloodwood and 2 walnut. Or no, a bloodwood, walnut, and cocobolo. I have a piece of cocobolo I was going to turn, but then I had a bit of a reaction, and I thought, probably not the environment to do that in. Respiratory, yeah. I know that cocobolo is one of the woods that you really have to watch. So that was the quick and dirty one that just about anybody can do with waste block and chuck. If you wanted to get more creative and have a little more fun, I was able to get, as a Christmas gift last year, a eccentric chuck. Ruth Niles sells the Joyner Eccentric Chuck from her website. What that consists of is a mandrel for her bottle stoppers that screws into a chuck with 8 different offsets. So you can see the different offset holes. Those 8 offsets will give you different inches of eccentricity. Say that twice. Even once. You also get, depending on the kit, you get a plate or 2 with 24 different offsets that you could rotate this. And then you just screw it to a waste block. Again, I have cut the 2-inch indicator on here so that when we glue up stuff that we know where it's at, or tape stuff up, we know where it's at. With all the different possibilities, it tends to get a little overwhelming. So one of the things they did with the chuck, they sell it with an Excel spreadsheet. And I don't know if this is going to work. I brought the Excel spreadsheet today to kind of show everybody. It's a simple spreadsheet. You have your project in the center. You indicate how big the radius is up in the corner. And then you can start adding offsets and indexes and create whatever project you want. Currently I have an inch in, well, I got a 1 inch. What I want to do is put a 2-inch in here. So I have a 2-inch project. I have a 1/2-inch offset on it. It's currently in offset number 7. I was going to measure the different offsets and try to figure out where they were, but I'm not that talented, I guess. I do know that the furthest one out is a 4, and the bravery level goes up as you go further out. So you can add different elements to your project. So we have the first element we have is at index of a 7. So we'll put a second element here We'll use the index as 7. We'll keep it at 0.4 so that the elements are the same size. But we'll index it on the outside ring. There's 24 indexes. So a third of that would be, how come it's not going? A third of that would be 8, right? If you break it up into 3s, and you see how that moved that second project over. You can add a third one at index 7. And the other one would be 16. Make it the same size, 0.4. And you can see the third one. I'll scroll this down a little bit. So you can see your different rings. So you can get very creative, putting arcs. So we'll add one more element here to show you what I mean. If we add another 7, we'll leave it at like a 5 index, but the diameter we're going to make like 2.5, which is bigger. So you can see how, because it's offset now, it's all air cut behind it. So you kind of make a little smiley face. So then you can take this index, and right now it's at 24. So we'll move it to 7. Let's do the right one, not the wrong one. We'll move this index. It's at 5. We'll move it to 16. Why didn't it move? Oh, there it goes. So you can see how it rotated around there. So you can add multiple indexes with multiple different diameters to give you, a fan shape or a shell shape on a project. How you do that, let's see if we can take this off now. Am I missing something? Oh, there is.
There you go.
Hey, look at that. Well, that makes life easy. So I always start in the center. It comes with a drawbar. My lathe isn't set up for a drawbar, but you definitely could use a drawbar. So we'll take another piece here. Couple pieces of double-sided tape. This is just a piece of white oak. One side of it has some dye on it, so it's black. Trim this a little bit. It never comes off when you want it to. Only when you don't want it to. Same thing as before, I got a recess cut in there. Just make sure that my piece goes on. I got my tailstock I'm going to bring up. The index or the offset on the chuck is at 0, so I'm just going to round the outside, trim it. I want good pressure on there. The other thing I found with the tape is if you use your waste block several times, the residue from the tape kind of gets stuck on there, and the second or third time it doesn't quite hold as well. So I typically, after I make a couple of them, I'll run a skew or a tool across it, just clean off the face and make sure it's nice. Now, because we probably won't be coming back to this offset, I'm going to put my groove in now as well because it's on 0. Maybe a little bit of sanding just to clean up that groove. Oh, yeah, I'm all right. I'm almost done. Thanks. So now we'll take it. The plate unscrews with several screws on the back here. So on the design, we moved it to 7. So I'll use hole number 7, which offsets it. Like I said, it's not sequential. So 8 isn't the furthest out. 4 is the furthest out. 8's a nice midpoint. Not too much air cuts. And then the plate, we unscrew from the chuck. I don't know if you can see it here. There's an indication on the chuck at 0, and the plate has a 0 mark. So currently we're at 0, 0. So we'll leave it there. I'll run my tailstock back up. My bead is about the size of the hole I want to make. So I'm just going to run the tool around the outside of the bead, and that'll make my offset. Just a quick little design. If you want to do any sanding now, next time you turn this, it'll be offset, so you need to sand it now before you get to it. So, well, we have 3 of them on the computer. So a third of 24 is 8. The nice thing about the Excel too, you can print it off and you can have a sheet right with you if you don't have a computer next to your lathe. Yes, I'll show you as soon as I take this apart. The back of the plate has 0, 6, 12, and 18 indicated, and the rest of them are inferred. So we'll go to 6, 7, 8. You place the 8 at the 0 mark. Take my tailstock and with my bead, move it up. This helps with not flying off if you get a catch. Not that I've ever had that happen. A little bit of sanding. Then we'll do our final hole. We did 0, we did 8, now we want 16. Again, as you design it on the computer, it tells you what offset it's at. So as you're indexing it through, you don't have to be symmetrical if you don't want to. Creativity is all that's limited. 16 is right there. If you've never done air cuts before, slow, small, light passes. I think most people do a little bit of air cuts here and there. We'll bring the bead up. Light sanding. Now like I said, I dyed the front of this before I started turning it so that it was easier to see. We'll pop it off here. So you can see you've got your concentric circles. I did a poor job on this one. Looks like it's a little bigger than the other ones, but you get the idea. A little bit of sanding. If you're going to make a keychain, put it back in the jig, cut out the notch. If you're going to make a necklace, drill through it, drill through either way. This is just a little bit of white oak, so I'm not sure how the color's going to pop on this. I think if I continued with this, I'd take the black off. I'm not Well, not too bad. We can pass that around if we want to. Again, the program really helps you out with how you want to put lines or partial lines. This one is complete circles, so none of them are offset far enough where you can't see anything. If we wanted to try to do a put one more piece of tape on this. Just do a down and dirty one real quick. So it's still at the original, or it's still at the setting of 7 on the offsets and 16 on the index. But instead of making a 1/2 inch hole or a 1/2 inch cut, I'll make a wider cut that'll just go through the outside. Again, this is mostly ear cuts. Did I laminate this myself? No, this was a piece of Spectra poly I had laying around. I had from a different project, like I said, scrap piece. We'll pop it off just so people can see this. I didn't, you know, put this back to 0 and create a perfect circle and do my groove on this. I just wanted to show what a simple arc, especially with the Spectra poly that shows you the different colors. So for $3 for 3 keychains, most people have the scraps laying around. You can create a couple quick Christmas gifts that really doesn't take that long to do. Anybody else have any questions or any input? Go ahead. Yes, there's 8 offsets. I have a ruler here, so we can probably figure that out. Different inches offset center. So the 0, 1. So number 7, which we were using, is probably a 1/2 inch off center. The most extreme one, which is a 4, is almost 3/4 inch off center. So again, the further out you get from center, the more ear cut there is, the more extreme the catch can be, so to speak. Yes.
I've got one, and I was playing around with it one day, and all of a sudden I look at it and I realize I've wound up with a fish on the I turned 4 and 5 of them, and then take it apart, and I can't figure out how the hell I did it.
Well, that's one of the nice things with the Excel spreadsheet. You can save that design, put it in a folder, keep the spreadsheet as a. What was it? Take a picture of the project, sure. with this chuck, I have taken some boxes that I've made and taken the tops with the box and just taped it to the chuck. And even though the diameter of the piece I was turning was like 6 inches, I was able to just put some nice arcs in the top of the box. Again, if you can use the tailstock to hold it in place, you can go bigger. When you're not using the tailstock with the offsets, how brave you are determines how big you can go. In preparation for the demo, I tried to do a fancy piece that would be more of a necklace with a greater offset. And as I did multiple colors, and as I was getting towards the edge, I got a nice catch, and I threw it across the room. And of course, the wife's upstairs going, "What are you doing down there?" Yeah. Yeah. Practicing. Making firewood. Here. I'm not too proud. This is the failure I was talking about. So again, I was basically the same design as what I just did with the 7 offset. I tried to do a 4 offset with a thick piece of yellow heart on a thin piece of bloodwood. I thought the red would pop through the yellow. Yeah, well, best made plans sometimes.
It popped.
It popped, yeah. Sure.
Does your glue block get taped down?
Yes, it does get taped. Onto the chuck?
Yeah.
No, what it does is you actually screw it onto your waist chuck.
You could have a bigger.
Yeah, you could have a bigger waist block. Okay, so we're going to show this. So this piece here, I don't know if you can see the small diameter was probably at a number 4 for an offset, and you made we'll call that a 1/2 inch radius. And then on the same offset, instead of a 1/2 inch radius, I did a 1.5 inch radius, and that creates that nice little arc on top of it. Now, it's directly parallel, I guess you'd call it, with that one. If we wanted to, we could have skewed the outer chuck and moved that to make more of like a fish shape, like eccentric, yeah, eccentric. Any other questions? Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.